Good morning or afternoon. Can you hear me, Richard?
Hey, Marianne. Zoom the recording. And Mr. Chairman, I think we have 27 participants in the room. I expect that number will increase as we keep going. But it's at 12:30 and we have a lot to cover. So I think we should go ahead and get started with your permission.
Yeah, welcome everybody to, sorry, Richard, was
Well, no, I just wanted to say welcome to the 2020 virtual winter meeting. Welcome to everybody. This is our session number 4. It's our MTAP business meeting. And I'm going to now turn it over to our chair and vice chair, Don Chartok and Jennifer DeBrule. Please take it away.
Yeah, and you pretty much know the drill at this point. And so we've had a couple of these sessions. It's been really great. I don't know how many people have heard the pre-session banter. As much as I have reached out to my staff and said, hey, make sure you do these. I haven't, each session I say, oh, and I should also reach out to this person because they find this element interesting. And so I'm really excited about the session so far, and I look forward to the sessions coming up. As you can see on the screen, we're doing roll call via chat. And so enter your name, title, and organization into the chat. And with that, I think let's get into the winter meeting. I mean, the business portion.
So to kick us off, here's the agenda for our typical business meeting. Typically, it's the steering committee meeting, which meets monthly. In this case, we moved the steering committee meeting to today. And we're just going to go over a few of the work plan updates and emphasis areas, starting with communications and a membership update. So everybody should know that I've recently updated the MTAP website for the members. We are now officially Alabama, Connecticut, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, and Maine. So please check us out again at mtap.transportation.org. And there's a map there that'll show you all the recently paid members of MTAP. And that's the update on communications and membership. The next one is related to meetings, and it's really just to put a bug in all our members' ears, the leadership, as well as the members, that in fact, we are in the middle, or we are starting the planning for the 19th Biennial State Programs and State Public Transportation Partnerships Conference. Marianne Stock has helped lead, and her staff have helped lead that endeavor, usually in the odd years. So in the even years, that's usually hosted by the partnerships, which is APTA, CCAM, and AASHTO, and of course FTA. But next year, the hope is where FTA takes over and they plan the sessions. So right now, all I have to report is we're having discussions with FTA. We're debating whether or not to hold this meeting in July or August of next year. And then also part of that discussion is involving, do we plan for in-person or do we plan for virtual to go to in-person if possible, or in-person to go to virtual? It's an internal debate, and just wanted to make the membership aware of where we're at right now. And frankly, if I would love to hear in the chat, if you have, because I'm collecting all the chats and saving them. If you have a preference on either July or August of 2021, please let us know what your preference is. And actually even tell us whether or not you would think in person versus virtual. Again, just this is sort of an informal poll. I think the chat function is a good way of doing that. So please feel free to send us a chat. Everybody online with us right now. So I'll thank everyone for that and move on to the next one under technical initiatives. Well, the MTAP steering committee, there's a working group on technical initiatives that's going to be meeting on December 18th. And we're going to be discussing the new potential for a new MTAP training module. Currently, right now, we have posted on our website at mtap.transportation.org what is called the FTA 101 training module. If you're online right now, I encourage you to go to our website under technical initiatives. You can find a link to that training module. If you or your staff are online, I encourage you to check it out. And I'm going to open this up to the members because I would love to hear from everybody, not only just the steering committee working group, but we're thinking about doing sort of an advanced version of it. So what would be the next step in terms of training for you and your staff? And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from the working group, and the working group's going to have this discussion. So I'm going to encourage them to take the training. It doesn't take that long. Take the training, see what's missing, and see where it can be improved, and what's the next level. What can we do? Can we do an FTA 102? I just think like college courses, FTA 101 seems like the basic introductory course. Is there a 201 idea that we need to have? So I would love to hear your thoughts. And again, we're going to be having that discussion on December 18th. So just wanted to give everyone the quick heads up. That's just the other update. Next, MTAP coordination and association coalition building. Hopefully we have, I see Jen, I see Don in the chat. Hopefully Mr. Charles Carr is online. But now I'm going to turn it over to you all for just a quick update on what's happening with our partners, starting with Charles, if he's available.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, perhaps for some of you. We want to share with you that CTA is planning at this point full speed ahead for the We Hope Expo 2021. It is scheduled for June 13th through the 17th in Richmond, Virginia. There will be some updates as the situation with the virus and related activities. At the very least, we are planning to have a virtual event if we cannot do face-to-face. On the opposite side, CTA's legislative committee is having meetings again tomorrow to kind of iron out some of the major legislative initiatives and looking at authorization primarily. But Richard asked us to keep this very short, so I'm going to focus on one point. There's a lot of effort and a lot of time being put into incorporating the non-emergency medical transportation benefit into the Medicare program. It's a very, very real possibility that will be codified into the language, and I would think that we should get behind that as best we can. Thanks.
So I'll jump in here and give you some updates from APTA. On the conference front, APTA still continues to provide a lot of virtual resources to its members during this unprecedented time. I do understand that the decision has been made to further delay the Transform conference. It had originally been scheduled for October in California. It was pushed out till March, and now the tentative dates are September 1st through the 3rd in Anaheim. And so I think there's a lot of hope that maybe by then we can gather together in person. I know it's been rough just seeing everybody through the computer. On the legislative front, to tag on to what Charles said, obviously there's a lot going on the advocacy side of APTA, particularly working with Congress on potential COVID relief for our transit agency. So very, very busy time. But if anybody has any questions about APTA, you can feel free to reach out to me.
All right, I guess it's up to me. And a lot of this information is also in the most recent MTAP newsletter. So anyone who wants to check out what's going on with National RTAP can look there. Some of the things that I find pretty interesting that I think is helpful to our rural partners. There's a session that was recently recorded on microtransit in rural areas. I think that's really interesting as looking at different ways to do that. And I know they're planning a conference on this topic as well, because I've been chatting with them about the different sessions that we might do. Similarly, the other thing that really jumped out at me and some of the stuff that they've done recently is building successful partnerships between rural transit systems, deploying zero emission vehicles, and electric utilities. And I know every state is a little bit different in this area, but I know, for example, in Washington State, we are very decentralized utilities. And so every single transit has to have sometimes multiple relationships with folks as they start to tax the electrical grid more and more to do zero emission vehicles. So more information about those two things and a lot of other things are available on the MTAP newsletter or on the RTAP website. You want me to just keep going, Richard?
Don, you're doing great. Keep it going.
Hey, may I just
Oh.
chime in real fast, Don, before you give this next important award out? And this is Jennifer. I just wanted to add on to what Jennifer mentioned. It's kind of timely, and it's dealing with the rollout of the vaccine. We've sent letters to all the governors to ask that transit providers and transit operators are in that first or second tier of getting the vaccine as get a priority for the vaccine. So I just wanted to because it's at the state level, a lot of this is going to happen. I just wanted to let everyone know, and I'd be happy to send Jennifer if you have the letter that went out, and then you could use at your own states to modify. But I think I just want to mention that because it's very timely and important that we get our transit operators to be considered in the first line for getting the vaccine.
I think thanks, Rich, for bringing that up. I think that's actually, I know that's come up here, and it started with the unions. It's trying to say that, pointing out that they're frontline essential workers. And it was really interesting, and I assume it's similar in other states, that emergency management is handled at the county level. And so one of the things we've noticed here is we have certain counties saying, oh, transit workers, we hadn't even thought about them. And so we've definitely dove in to that conversation and making sure that transit workers are considered as part of frontline essential workers. And whether it's depending on how you grade the phases, and I don't know if this is universal or not, whether it's phase 3 or phase 2C or I think those are the different terminologies I've heard for transit workers. We want to make sure that they're protected and our industry is healthy. So thanks,
Rich, send that to me as well, because I think that would make a great article.
I'll do that. I will do that
for the MTAP news.
It actually has been in today's, I guess it was the Good Morning America. It was actually mentioned transit agencies are being considered in that essential workers in getting the vaccine up front early. So I think it's making some traction, some of the things we've been doing. But I will send that letter because, again, it's more going to be, all the action is going to be at the state level for how this vaccine gets distributed. So I'll be happy to send that letter to Don and Jennifer and Richard Price. We can get out
very quickly on a somewhat related matter that I just skipped right over. There's quite a bit of discussion apparently coming through CTA network from the membership. There are a lot of questions being raised about the ability to provide access to COVID vaccines for frail elderly. That has become a hot button topic. So we need to keep abreast of where that is and try to work with FTA to make sure that we are all, as best we can, on the same page. There are some real liability issues that people are throwing up. So I think we're going to have to address that sooner rather than later.
Kristen Haar.
Yeah, I was wondering if anybody knew how this all relates to the information that FTA, at least our region, collected on all of the transit agencies and vaccine distribution for their employees. FTA regions just collected all that, so I thought that was going to have some impact on actual, getting of the vaccine. So I didn't know if anybody had any more information on that.
So the last I heard is that is step one, and that no one is really sure what step two is. And I know Marianne's going to be talking in a few minutes, so she may have something to contribute, but maybe not. We've been talking with our people on the region level pretty consistently, and so far it's been, yeah, we've collected the information, and now we're still working through what we're going to do next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if you want me to chime in at this point. Maybe not.
Well, if it's on topic, I actually will. I'll audible to you.
Well, it's only to tell you that I don't have a whole lot more information than what you just talked about. But yeah, it's basically, I think FTA is trying to be prepared for, information that we may be asked to provide at the federal level to assist in this whole effort. And so knowing that wasn't going to be easy for us to get, in a short turnaround, we started that effort with the regions, to be prepared. But beyond that, we don't actually know yet how that information might be used.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, we're all making do, being virtual and being doing these Zoom meetings, going from Zoom to Teams back to Zoom. But I was just thinking, the thing that I am most disappointed about is that we can't do this award in person. I would love to be able to congratulate this person for their achievement, for their contributions to this group, because in large part, that's what this is about. It's a bit, service is in the title. From the moment they joined this group, they've been an active member. Anytime we've needed someone to step up and take on a new role, this person has stepped up and taken on a new role. Quoting from the nomination, this person demonstrates consistent participation in MTAP meetings, technical initiatives, responses to MTAP alerts and newsletters. They provide great insight and professional leadership in all these areas. And so I think that's pretty awesome. I was reading over this person's bio, and I'm pretty sure they started when they were 12, because they already had a 20-year career in the industry before they came to us. And maybe it's a surprise, maybe it's not, but our honoree this year is Jennifer DeBrule. Thank you Jennifer for all of your contribution. We really appreciate it. Your work with APTA, your work with this group, all throughout the industry. It's really, really appreciated. So thank you very much.
So, wow, I'm completely surprised and speechless, which doesn't happen very often. But this is, wow, this is amazing. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. It has been a wild ride since I joined DRPT almost 5 years ago. And being part of this group has really just been a great experience for me. And I have really enjoyed getting to know everybody and being able to bug Richard all the time with my multiple questions and requests. Anyway, I have nothing else to say. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
That's great. Thank you very much. All right, Richard, are we ready to move on?
Yes. You're absolutely ready to move on.
So we've already teased Marianne's participation in this group. And so we're going to hear on the Coordinating Council on Access and Mobility, get the update. I know I continue to track this very closely. I know sometimes making progress in this area can be frustrating, but it's changing the world for us. And so that if once we get there, once we climb this hill, it will make a huge difference in the world and the way we deliver services. So Marianne, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Don, sorry.
Good.
All right, you can go to the next slide. We don't have to look at my picture anymore. Okay, so I think you all know all the background. We kind of cut down the background at this point. I've talked to you guys, and I know you're all familiar with that. But basically, we had some statutory requirements in the FAST Act that was enacted in December of 2015, and you can see them listed here. And we have met those requirements, and in fact, the last requirement was a report to the president that was submitted on September 30, 2020. And I guess you can go to the next slide. Okay, so we submitted the report to the president again in September of 2020. In the report, I think I just want to say one thing. You sometimes will hear this referred to as the final report to the president, or the final CCAM report, and that's how it is described in the FAST Act, and that's why we sometimes call it the final report. But we don't consider it final in the sense that we know, as Don said, we have a lot of work yet to do on this, and it is a living, breathing effort. I don't know that this report will, I mean, the report is the report, it's out there, but we know that we still have a lot of work to do. I wanted you all to know that FTA is not stopping here, and we are continuing on. So I did want to make that point. But in this report, we talk about all the CCAM work that we've done since the beginning, since the enactment of the FAST Act, essentially, and each of those actions is aligned to, excuse me, a requirement in the FAST Act, so that we're demonstrating that we've met all those requirements. The way we put this together, essentially, which you all probably already know, FTA led the development, and FTA has been the agency designated by the Secretary of Transportation to lead this effort within DOT, and all the other CCAM agencies had an opportunity to review and give feedback. So it's really a consensus report of all the participating agencies in the CCAM. Okay, you can go on to the next slide. So this slide just again talks about all of the different things that that we have done essentially since the enactment of the FAST Act in 2015. You can see, I think most of you are probably familiar with all these things, but I'll just briefly describe them. So we had a series of pilot program grants that we've sort of put under an umbrella name of the Transit and Health Access Initiative. They were primarily financed through the Innovative Coordinated Access and Mobility Pilot Program that was also authorized in the FAST Act. We did a series of state and local focus groups that some of you, I think, probably participated in. And we also had NCMM distributed a survey geared at identifying barriers to transportation coordination. Then we had what we call the program analysis working sessions, which was really groups of federal employees from the different agencies sort of getting together to figure out what to do now that we knew the barriers from the focus group effort and the survey, you know, what's our best way of addressing them in the current state. And that was the program analysis working sessions. We had the first official CCAM meeting that had been held since 2009, was convened in October of 2019. And then following that, we convened FTA, CMS, and the VA got together to develop the cost sharing policy statement. That was another requirement in the FAST Act. And we also got together, again, you know, really produced the report. And the meat of the report is in the 12 challenges that are described there, which I'm going to get into a little more detail in a minute. Next slide. Uh-oh. Is anybody hearing me still?
We're hearing you fine.
Sorry, I
Okay,
ducked
I'm
out.
not seeing the next slide. I'm not sure what's going on, but, oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so as I said, and you probably know if you've taken a look at the report, we, as part of this whole process, we ended up developing 12 challenges that are outlined in the report. The challenges came from the discussions between the CCAM agencies that started back in 2017 through as part of the interagency work groups that I mentioned. And then in 2020, we revisited what we had discussed before and then began to sort of integrate that with the information that we got from the 2018 focus groups and from the survey. And in the end, it came down to the 12 overarching challenges and potential improvements to federal laws and regulations to improve transportation coordination. And then we categorized the 12 challenges into two main categories: challenges about CCAM agency engagement and CCAM initiatives, and challenges around state and local coordination. And then under state and local coordination, we had some global challenges related to sort of the broad issues of transportation coordination. And then we also had some very specific non-emergency medical transportation, or NEMT, challenges. Well, actually, we only had one of those in the end. So, but I'm gonna, let's go to the next slide. I know that's those NEMT challenges are probably what interest all of you the most. So even though there's only one challenge that's directly related to NEMT, we had two other ones that sort of have implication for NEMT. And I thought it might be worth noting that there is a specific reference to, well, during the development, let me start it this way. During the development process of the CCAM cost sharing policy statement, the CCAM noted that some CCAM stakeholders, including state Medicaid agencies, might be able to benefit from more technical assistance regarding CMS policies around cost sharing. And that, that statement appears in the report as well. So the first challenge that we have identified here on the slide related to NEMT is the need for transportation data collection guidance. What we understand as the barrier is that although there's many programs that may fund transportation, they don't all require standardized data collection. And we understand that you all as states and transportation providers need federal guidance on data collection, including defined indicators to measure social determinants of health. There isn't right now any central federal agency that establishes transportation data collection guidance. And so we identified that as a challenge, that if we could develop a standard, federal agencies would be able to alter their program regulations and require federal fund recipients to collect uniform transportation data. And then we could develop performance measures for each CCAM agency based on that data. So we are actually moving forward to sort of initiate a project to try to begin to address that. And you'll probably hear more about that as we move on. Second challenge that's on the slide here is about reporting requirements for jointly funded projects that sometimes are very complicated and not standardized. I'm sure you're all very familiar with these challenges because you told us about them. That's how we got them. But here, what we're talking about is reporting requirements when there's multiple federal funding sources that fund the same service can be very complex, both for NEMT and for other forms of transportation. And we understand that states and transportation providers struggle to interpret and follow the reporting requirements of multiple federal and state funding sources, and that can discourage interagency or intercommunity transportation coordination efforts. And sometimes that means you would have less transportation service available. what could be improved there. If if we address this, transportation providers would be able to share vehicles for medical and non-medical trips without strenuous reporting requirements, increasing the efficiency of federal and state transportation funds. And communities that struggle to provide match for federal grants, including a lot of rural communities, I think, would be able to braid federal funds more easily, enabling them to provide transportation that might not otherwise have been provided. And then challenge 12 that's listed on here is specific to VTS, that the Veterans Transportation Service is not expressly allowed to share costs of transportation and transport other federal program beneficiaries. And that makes it very difficult when VTS beneficiaries share rides with other program beneficiaries. But the authorizing legislation for the VA doesn't expressly allow VA to transport other federal program beneficiaries on VTS operated vehicles to non-VA facilities. So these program restrictions within the VA limit the VA to only providing rides by VTS paid employee drivers and only to and from VA facilities and authorized community care facilities. So, and the VTS program is also restricted to providing transport only to VTS beneficiaries. And obviously this prevents opportunities for states and local communities to coordinate transportation with the VTS. So we'd like to see that if it could be made clear that the VA has the ability to share transportation costs with other federal agencies when VTS funded vehicles transport other federal program beneficiaries, and when other organizations and federal agency programs use their vehicles to transport VTS beneficiaries, that could create cost savings for VTS and for other federal agency programs, as well as for states and local communities. So I wanted to just highlight these three challenges because I think they're probably the ones that are perhaps of great interest to all of you, but there's also 9 others that are in the report that hopefully you've read too. So next slide. Okay, so this is, I wanted to tell you also that we are still working on the CCAM cost allocation technology for NEMT. And this was a project that we developed in February 2019. We issued a solicitation for a small business and innovation research phase 1 project to develop a cost allocation proof of concept model for an open source software application. And I think some of you, I know Don and maybe other people in this meeting helped us by participating on an advisory panel to help develop that project. We did complete phase 1. There's a phase 1 report publicly posted, and phase 2, which is the actual development of the model, is expected to begin in early 2021. And what this does is help us meet another one of the requirements in the FAST Act. We developed the cost sharing policy with an NEMT component to help guide the development of this allocated cost model. So the hope is that since DHS, DOT, and the Department of Veterans Affairs all work together on creating the cost sharing policy statement, it provides key information on both vehicle and ride sharing and federal fund braiding, and the cost allocation model should be guided by those policies and ultimately be a tool that can be used to meet all of the requirements in a satisfactory way for DOT, HHS, and Veterans Affairs. And I think that may be the last slide. I'm not sure. Next slide. Okay, this is just for everybody's benefit. We put all of the links to the various products, CCAM products that we hope were helpful to you are here. And I think maybe we have a few other links on the next page. Yeah, these are links to the Transit and Health Access Initiative project selection descriptions, and you can look at those and perhaps be inspired. Use them as best practices, try to replicate them, however they can be helpful. And I will say that we are anticipating that there will be another round of competitive grants under this program in 2021. I don't know the timing yet, but watch for that, and we'll consider those additional demonstrations of CCAM work. So that's the slides. I don't know if we have more time for questions or discussion.
Yeah, I think we do, and Richard can correct me if I'm wrong. So my first question, so thank you very much for the update, is have you gotten any feedback on that first report on the cost allocation? To me, that's where the meat is in this whole discussion, is being able to do cost sharing, cost allocation. And so I'm curious about what, if anything, you've heard since that first report came out.
Excellent question. Actually, to my knowledge, we have not, in terms of feedback, other than, you know, we've been presenting it. I know you guys know we did the NCMM webinar. You know, I think it's been well received by all of you and our constituency that was waiting with bated breath for this. But I have not been on the receiving end of feedback from, let's say, Congress or, you know, other interested parties, the president, Congress, the people that the report was actually sent to. I have not heard any response from them yet. But I anticipate that we will eventually.
Yeah, and I'll keep chatting. I want other people to chime in too if they have any questions and comments on this issue. I guess I got two other things, and as much as you can, please speak to the partner agencies and how their buy-in at this point.
I'm sorry, your voice was a little muffled. Which agencies are you asking about?
As much as you can, Marianne, can you talk a little bit about the buy-in from the partner agencies, so veterans and
the partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hope I'm getting a message. My internet is unstable.
We can hear you.
I hope you can all hear me. Okay. Well, like I tried to say before, it was a collaborative and I would say consensus effort. We were not, you know, as we drafted the report, everything that's in the report was bought off on and signed off on by all of the partner agencies. So anything you see in the report is fully endorsed by those agencies. So that's what I can say. I guess, you know, if you think there was an issue that we may have discussed at an earlier time period and it didn't make it into the report, there's probably a reason. You know, I don't want to get into any more specifics than that, but I guess, I don't know if that answers your question. I guess anything you see in the report and any of the products that we've already produced, you know, that are publicly available are fully endorsed by all of the partner agencies. And, you know, in terms of the development of the cost allocation model, you know, we're very hopeful that ultimately that will be a truly useful model in the sense that it will comply with, you know, any requirements of any agency that might fund transportation, if that makes sense.
Great. And so as the next phase comes out, I'd love to see, and this is Don's broken record portion of the conversation, where I repeat myself, is I want to see their logos on the new tool that comes out. Yeah, I know at least here in Washington State, our brokers and our folks are pretty risk adverse, and they'll want to see some sort of direct evidence that their chain of command, their reporting agency who they get their money from is blessing the tool. And so I will leave that there. But I guess the other thing is, what else do you need from us, if anything? Is there any information you need from us or something else that would be helpful to continuing to move this work forward?
Sure. Well, it's always helpful to continue having these discussions. I mean, what you just said, I'm going to write that down, that to make sure that the model is presented in a way that it's very clear, that it is fully endorsed by CMS, I guess is where you were going with that. And I think we'll try to build that in. So comments like that, anything you can do. I think we are also, we're actually in the process. I don't know, is Danielle, are you on the call? If Danielle Nelson is on the call, she can speak up, but we're right now, as I mentioned earlier, developing, trying to work on the effort to develop the data standards, and we're working on a survey. Well, let me put it a different way. NCMM is working on a survey, not FTA, but NCMM will be in the next month or so, sometime in January, I think we'll be probably conducting a survey. So any of your feedback that you can provide through that about the kind of data that you're aware is already collected, and also helping us get that survey not only to you all, because I think we know what kind of data you guys collect, but it's more about other grantees of other CCAM agencies who may or may not collect data, and how they could potentially. And so when that survey becomes available, we may ask some of you to help us develop it. We may be reaching out to many of you, for specific efforts as we go along and try to address some of these challenges. But beyond that, just spreading the word, and to the extent you can within your states, to bring the state level partners to the table when these discussions are coming on would be really, really helpful. And whatever we can do, to help that happen also, we can talk about that, but because I know that's not always easy to do, but I think we're in a good process of working together at the federal level, trying to give you tools, you're trying to give us tools, and we can go forward that way.
I see Danielle came on. Danielle, you want to add anything?
I'll echo Marianne's point, Don. That's a great idea. The phase 2 for that small business innovation research project. I think from the kickoff meeting, which we've invited CMS to, talking about using their logo from day one means we may actually, when the 18 months is up, get approval. So that's a great suggestion. I'm sure you're aware in the first round, they wanted to be aware every step of the way and CC'd, but they didn't want to be co-owners. So I'll just be transparent that CMS has been engaged all the way, but in a sort of peripheral, ready to be poised to say no to things at every point, but not necessarily gung-ho. Things might change, so we're always sort of hopeful with that. And this new phase 2 of this SBR project is the perfect time to re-engage them and see if changes that are occurring right now may mean positive things for the next phase. And the data group effort we're doing that Marianne mentioned is really about the SBIR project and that cost allocation, because right now, one of the biggest challenges FTA's had through their AIM grants is that one of them is getting Older Americans Act funds, and they're defining one-way trips differently than we do at FTA. And that difference in data standards is becoming a problem for the grantee. And so that's sort of what we're trying to get at.
Great.
One question.
Quickly on the
Can I throw in a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Is it, and for Marianne, is it appropriate that we at the ASHTO MTAP level make any kind of formal acknowledgement or endorsement or comments on the benefits of this report and the activities that are going forward? Do we need to just stay silent and comment on specific issues?
I think it's always helpful if you want to weigh in and communicate your support. We always want that. And if there's something if there's something that's really an issue, you can raise that too. And it's always that's the only way that we're really going to be able to address things is if we have the support of all of you behind us. And you know, I mean, I think you all know that our biggest challenge, as Danielle kind of alluded to also, is the engagement of the other agencies. And so anything that, you know, it's not that we don't want to move these things forward, it's just you know, transportation is considered a transportation responsibility and not an HHS responsibility. That's what we generally hear. So yeah, and anything you can do to endorse it, support it, urge you know, further work and additional engagement is always helpful. It makes our
Charles,
job easier.
you made me think of something really interesting. I think, and I don't know if it's coincidence, if it's or what, but it's been the 2 Republican administrations that the work of CCAM has really been promoted and pushed forward. It might be worth an effort on our part as the new administration comes in to emphasize that this is important and not to lose a sight of it. And so maybe that's, I don't know, you know, Richard, I know your VIPs have probably conversations coming up with whoever the incoming administrators are and things like that. So it might be worthwhile to reemphasize that point.
Well, I fully support that. And one of the reasons I was raising that, because we know that there are feelers out about the incoming administration and directions to take and positive things. And from my perspective, it never really hurts to go on record, letting folks know what we think are some really positive things that have taken place. Let's don't just throw it out and start anew. Let's reinforce the value of what all this work that Marianne and all of the other people who've been involved in have put into this. It's going to be really critical that we don't have 6 months from now, when you hear the term CCAM, that you see people rolling their eyes and say, well, here we go again. You know, because historically, CCAM did not live up to its expectations for a number of reasons, but it looks like it's back on track, and I think we need to support it as much as we possibly can.
It's hard.
I'll just mention that federal rating guide that was published, which took a lot of work and only is 67 of the 130 programs, so we could meet their general counsel with ours to talk about if federal fund rating was allowed. I think it's extremely timely, just like the other, I think it's tomorrow, you guys are having a session about in-kind match and that research effort. And I think with COVID, it is integral that different match funding abilities are available. And so I don't know if there's an interest in having NCMM do a webinar to talk about that federal fund rating guide and that National Highway, the research on in-kind match, because I'm sure with budget shortfalls, that's going to be of interest.
Fully agree. Thanks.
And I mean, I'm sure you guys have already thought of this, but to the extent you can tie it, I mean, I think there are a lot of ties to the current health emergency, as we say. You know, this is all about non-emergency medical transportation. And so when a new administration comes in, obviously, they're not necessarily going to pick up what the old one did. But if you can, you know, kind of make a connection with the very urgent work that needs to go on right now with the health emergency, that's my tip to you in presenting it to the new administration.
Very good. Other questions or comments? I did get a couple of direct chats as we were going through that, reemphasizing the fact that people have noticed that this is, for whatever reason, maybe it's an efficient government efficiency thing, has been more of a Republican initiative than a Democratic one. But it's important to all of us. So
I think you're right, Don, because it's about efficiency and really the bottom line is saving taxpayer dollars. And so I think that's really resonated to your point with certain.
Well, we can point out that we can spend those dollars elsewhere.
Don, we have a comment
yeah.
from Eric Taylor in Alaska. Eric, do you want to How about opening your line? Let's have a discussion. Let's talk about this. We have some time before the end of this session.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
We sure
Yep.
can.
Yeah, I would just, we had a coordinated community task force at the state level. And then we actually had state legislation that helped us out for a number of years. Ultimately, that the state legislation sunsetted in 2016. But yeah, we found that that we were able to progress, you know, along a number of lines. We even had some funding available where we were able to hire a consultant, you know, to lead kind of a state committee, which worked for a number of years. And you know, we found a number of issues that tended to be, you know, things that focused attention. I recall the taxi regulations being a big issue, and ultimately that I think Uber and Lyft and the rideshare companies sort of solved that issue. But you know, we found that in terms of the operating side that we were highly dependent on the focus of the state health department. You know, they had grant programs. They had the NEMT issue. They had the Medicare issue. So all of the programs that we depended upon coordinating, you know, to get the transportation component in there, at least the bulk of them and the bulk of the operating dollars came out of those health programs. And what ended up being the frustrating thing at that time, and you know, I think it was the act coming out of Washington and the implications on the states and how they were going to, you know, how the states were going to support Medicaid and the additional state burden on that ended up driving, you know, the state health department in a completely different direction. And, you know, and eventually the people we had that were interested in it, in coordinating on the transportation level, all their focus just got pulled off in another direction, and they were missing meetings. And you know, and it ended up being a complete lack of interest, for lack of any other way of putting it. It was just a loss of focus. So
I think we've seen
you
that
know, I
a
think
lot.
what we would need to see, you know, going forward is something that somehow preserved that. I like the logo idea, but there almost has to be some apparatus in the health department at the federal level that continues to push this down to the states. Otherwise, I don't see the focus that has been built up during the last 4 years lasting with the incoming administration.
That's always the problem with things that are personality based, right? So you get agreement from one administration, and then it's hard to go on unless there's something in writing that's the official blessing to keep this thing going. And so we definitely look forward to that. Thanks, Eric. Hey, Molly, I see that you had a comment as well. Did you want to chime in?
Holly, go ahead. Holly, if you're talking, oh, there you go. Holly Mahoney, are you on mute? No.
All right.
I
Other
don't-
comments? I think so. It's interesting, as much as many of us have been in doing this conversation, well, or at least the 20 years that I've been here, we do have new people every once in a while. And so it is good. I think Molly's point is to get some training. And that doesn't mean everybody else knows all the details of what's going on. I think I'd recommend anyone go through those different additional resources that Marianne provided as part of her presentation, and you can learn a lot more. And so I think that that's great. So any other comments or questions as we get ready to wrap up this session?
Ladies and gentlemen, now's your time. You can feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question, raise a point. This is discussion time.
Well, this is Rich. I just want to thank Mary Ann again. She's and Danielle for they're going to be putting out a CCAM regional contact person that the NCMM folks can also help reach out to help spread the word on the good products and really enforce not only, with FTA. I mean, it's on you guys have, put all this weight on your shoulders is, you put the burden of all this good work to get moving along, but we've got to share it with the other CCAM partners. But I really thank you, Mary Ann and Danielle, for, getting that regional liaison, or that the NCMM will be the regional liaison, but to have that FTA CCAM contact person in each region, I think will be very helpful. And I really thank you for helping us with those.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate the presentation, Marianne. It was very good, very informative. Danielle, I appreciate you tying the presentation, the CCAM, with some of the research initiatives that we are trying to follow through with the MTAP and the Council on Public Transportation, because these are the things that are going to make the difference where the rubber meets the road, where our subrecipients out here trying to survive. I thank you so much.
Wow, it's hard to build off of that. So I'll thank you both. And hey, we get another half-hour break, and then we're coming back to talk about budget shortfalls and the impact on transit. I know in Washington State, it's been pretty interesting times. I'm really looking forward to hearing from other states and how they're dealing with service, with CARES Act, and everything else going on with budget. So let's get up, let's stretch our legs, send a few emails back and forth, and we'll come back and talk in half an hour.
And let's say thank you to Mary Ann and Danielle. Thank you. And applause.
No,
Thank you
Charles did too much, so that's enough.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you too, because we couldn't do it without your help. I know some of you have participated in a lot of, you've sent us a lot of information. You've participated on advisory committees, and I hope you'll continue as we need that support. So thanks for you.
We really count on this partnership. So thanks for coming, and we really get a lot out of it. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. See you in half an hour.
Have a great afternoon.